Hello.
Hello.
How's your back, Mary?
I'm back here. I'm here. I had to get dinner going.
No. How's your back feeling?
It's, few blessings were answered in that my MRI doctor people called and said, you can come in today to get the MRI. So I did that. And then they called and said, we have an opening to go see the doctor on Thursday instead of next week.
Well, that's good.
Those are good news. And they gave me, they gave me that crazy steroid pack again to do, you know, where I said, I've had
Oh, I'm on mine.
times, and he said, that's a good thing.
I'm on my Zoom.
What?
I'm on Zoom too.
Oh.
So I'm here, not having a good time, but I'm here.
Okay. Do you all want your camera muted off or your camera not visible or?
As long as you don't mind, I'm having a little glass of wine before I take my medicine.
No, there's no judgment here, Mary. You know that.
Yeah, if I turn myself off, it's because I've gone to lay down on that sofa.
Okay. Got it.
Anyway,
So everybody else good?
Good.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, Karen.
Hello.
Facing a new round of backlash after she admitted remote learning didn't work. She tweeted, "What we have seen in public education is that technology can't replace teachers. Remote education didn't work, in part because we the teachers unions pushed to keep kids out of the classroom for the early days of the pandemic. Listen to what she said in 2020.
If the authorities don't protect the safety and health of those we serve, is off the table. Advocacy or protests, negotiations, grievances, or lawsuits, or if necessary, as a last resort, safety strikes.
You walk into this one. This week, were you surprised?
this is like waiting for paint to dry.
I know it is. It is.
How are you doing? Did you have a good day yesterday?
Yeah, it was a good day. We went to the Dunedin Art and Craft Festival, found a fabulous place for lunch because one of our good friends is a vegetarian, so that's always hard.
Where'd you go?
It was called, oh gosh, Sterling, but it's spelled with an I. It's Stirling, and it's right on the main strip.
Oh.
Street that is.
You.
It's next to the Smokehouse barbecue place.
Okay. Yeah.
And they had an amazing menu for non-meat eaters, and it was delicious. They make their own flatbread. They had a singer, and he played the flute, he played guitar, he had a great voice. He was probably like in his mid-30s. It was lovely.
Very nice. Very nice. So was
Yeah,
it
and
busy yesterday?
Pardon me?
Was it busy yesterday at the Arts Festival?
I would say it was moderate because we didn't go until noon.
Okay.
So I think it started on Saturday, and I think a lot of people probably went on Saturday. It was easy to walk around, but not devoid of people. So
Yeah, my sister and the family went Saturday, and they said it was insane.
well, maybe it's good that we waited till yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but it's people bring their dogs, and I just they're not watching. The dog starts taking off. Somebody trips over the dog. I just don't understand that.
Running, yeah. My sister made that comment. She said, and she's a dog lover, but she said the dog should not be running around.
Well, and I'm a dog lover too, but if the dog's not in a buggy, then maybe the dog shouldn't be with you.
Yeah, those big, huge dogs are crazy too, intimidating.
Well, and this one participant, she had her dog, she was holding her dog, but the dog was hanging off her shoulder, and she's in my best friend's face while my best friend's trying to make a purchase. It's like, really? And then
Yeah, right, that's crazy. Were there any birds? Sometimes you see people with parrots on their head and stuff like
did
that.
not see any birds, just dogs.
This dog.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but it had a nice mixture. I mean, some items were $2,500, some items were 4,000, some items were $25.
Yeah.
It was quite the mixture of artwork. So a lot of
It
different
sounds like it
mediums.
was Big.
Now it goes all the way past the street that Cafe Al Fresco crosses.
Uh-huh.
So the next street is usually full of booths too, which it never used to be.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was good. And it was just such a beautiful day. And of course the Bills won, so it was a good day.
My son is happy too. He loves the Bills. And not to mention what went on. It was,
Right. Yeah, I missed the first half, which was okay, but the second half was so exciting. It was amazing.
I can't believe they had 2 run backs. When does that happen?
Well, the first one was the first opening drive.
Right.
Yes. And then the
3
second one I
years.
saw, so it was in the second half somewhere.
3 years and 33 days ago, that's when it happened last.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you, Julie.
Little tidbits here and there from the peanut gallery.
And the peanut gallery, yes. So I now become a football junkie from now until the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well,
That's-
I was yesterday because I couldn't move. So I was like, well, I'm just going to watch football all day.
You didn't watch the Bucks game, did you? Because it
I
wasn't very
did.
good.
Yeah, I did. And then I switched because I was like, okay, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to go past this week's game, but especially since who are we playing? We're playing Dallas or are we playing the 49ers?
The Dallas. I'm pretty sure we're playing Dallas.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. That win's just not going to happen.
We beat them once this year.
I know we did,
Yeah.
Julie. I know.
Never say never with Tom Brady.
That's
Well,
right.
that is true. I agree
And
with
he was
that.
pacing the sideline because he wasn't playing. That drove him nuts.
Oh, I didn't see that. So some of the playoff games look really good. And, as always, some are just blowouts and depends how they're matched up. We'll see.
So
I
we're
don't-
looking forward to this Texas TCU and Georgia game tonight because my brother went to TCU. So I thought, oh, I got to root for the Horned Frogs.
So is this, I'm so confused with college football now. It used to be easy. The Rose Bowl on New Year's Day was the last game.
Right, but because New Year's Day was on Sunday, they are playing it today. No, wait a minute, that's not right. I
No,
don't remember.
they played the Rose Bowl
They did do
on
the Rose
Monday,
Bowl on Monday.
but
So what is this bowl?
I don't know.
Could change your whole life.
It's national championship.
It's the championship.
College national championship.
So did they used to do that, Julie? Because I don't remember that.
They just because of the format, it's gotten
She
moved
put
out.
the
It's
Ricky
not
jar
like-
in
Okay, I don't know whether my
In the
microphone is
bowl games.
unmuted or not.
It's not.
I hear you, Leah.
Were you talking to somebody?
Oh,
Whether
who's
you like it or
listening?
not, I hear you.
We hear you, Leah. I don't know if I have the ability to mute anybody or not. Father, do you know that?
He can make you give you ability.
Well, I have a screen up that has microphones and I don't know if I can do that to somebody. Maybe I can. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning Zoom. That's why, Mary, I couldn't send you a link because I don't know how to do that.
That's okay. I just wasn't sure if I had gotten it before or not.
Did you get your letter? Did you get
I
your
did.
letter last week?
I did, and I didn't read the second page. I knew what it was, but I didn't realize did that have the Zoom on it?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Yeah, it did. But I was
And
surprised at
it's
how
on the
quickly,
website.
I was surprised at how quickly everybody got theirs. I didn't mail them till Tuesday. And on
Yeah,
Thursday,
I
it seems
got-
like everybody local got theirs.
Yeah, I
That's
got
nice.
them right away.
Mhm.
So hopefully that was well received and so hopefully a few more people will pop in here.
Well, at least our speaker has to pop in.
Yeah, that would be key.
But the bishop's installation was beautiful. It really was. The choir was amazing. They have the one choir member that always sings the, oh, what part is that? Lord have mercy. And she has an incredible voice. And it's
Holy,
just
holy, holy.
beautiful to listen to her.
Was that your first time going there?
No, because I went to Deacon Sandy's installation.
Okay.
That was what, maybe last spring? Oh, it might have been even a year ago, October. Whenever that was the first time I was in that church. I was impressed by the cabling that goes from buttress to buttress. I'm assuming that's because of a hurricane. I have never seen industrial cabling on the inside of a structure like that.
And I honestly don't remember as a kid it being there, but maybe it was.
I don't know. It's a beautiful church.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Lori.
I,
You did it right. You're good.
yeah,
You were so worried about it. You did it right.
yeah.
We have, what time is it? Let's see. We have 9 minutes left.
And Patty's on. Patty's officially on.
Okay. Hi, Patty.
Hi.
We're getting there.
Mm.
Are you home this week, Patty?
Yeah. This week I'm home, be home next week, and then I travel again the next 3 weeks.
Do you come home in between?
Yeah.
No, that's good. Because that could be exhausting.
It is. Even coming back and forth, traveling right now is just horrible in the airport.
I know.
Have they been crazy?
Yes.
Our kids flew from New York City to Jacksonville and back Christmas Day and then the 29th.
It's Mary.
It was interesting.
You come sit here, you can watch it.
There was a lot of canceled flights even after the mess of Christmas when I went away last time. It was just crazy.
I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if the systems are old or they just have a shortage of personnel that call in sick at the last minute.
That's what I think it is. I think it's personnel and logistics. So it affects all of it, not only the people that fly the plane, the people that take care of the plane, the people that
Sure.
work in the airport, the whole chain.
Well, they've always tried to go bare bones, all of them, with all their staff. And then when people call in sick or unavailable, really wreaks havoc. Okay, who else just joined? I think
Karen.
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 Hi,
Hi, Karen.
Hello.
Do I see your
hello.
husband in the background?
Hi, David.
Yes, David's here
Hi,
too.
David.
I'm sorry you're not feeling well, Mary.
Oh, my gosh.
Arm back's just the worst.
Yeah, and I, Isabella got me. She said, Mimi, pick me up, and I picked her up
Yes.
too many times, and I got kind of a respiratory issue too, and so I was coughing so hard that it hurt my back.
Mhm.
So I just, but I got an MRI today, go to the doctor tomorrow, my regular, and then Thursday I go to my back doctor, Dr. Davis.
Okay.
Because I'm like, no kidding, I cough and it feels like somebody stabbed me in the back.
Yes.
It's a little bit above and beyond what I'm used to.
Right. Well, let's hope that one of them can get you some relief.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, so they gave me steroids, but I told them I am drinking wine before I take my steroids.
Which means you'll be up to 3 in the morning watching television as the steroids probably buzz you.
Yeah, it's funny because I have been sleeping and horizontal for 3 days and I'm like still sleeping. I'm thinking I'm never gonna sleep. I've got a really good book though about women and Jesus.
All right.
Okay.
Women Think of Jesus or something. It's really good. It's got questions and answers. I'll share it.
Nice.
Yes.
It's really a good one. The women of the Bible that we don't really think about, and you know.
Oh, is that, what's her name's the author? I can't think of her name.
If you tell me, I'll say yes.
Sarah Young.
No,
No,
Mercado,
who, Kim?
Mercado.
yes, I think it might be. She's great. And she's written a lot of different books, and she's written a book about for teens, female women, teenagers too, which I thought, well, that's kind of intriguing to read about. Lots of good. So
She shouldn't be drinking.
I believe Bill Athison has several books, and Father John might also. Either he or Bill have mentioned that author's name during Bible study.
no. I'm gonna run get it because I can't remember exactly.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Bob. Bob, you're muted, just so that you know.
That's what I wanted to know.
Leah's muted. Those are the only microphones I see.
Now Joe is.
Trying to scroll down.
It says I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Okay.
Like for just a couple seconds, it said you were.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and mute because I can hear it clear when I'm muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the book. It's Rebecca McLaughlin. And it's called Jesus Through the Eyes of Women.
Wow.
I like it.
Did a woman write it?
Yes, she did. It is. I think I'll share it with you guys because it really is. I've enjoyed it so far.
Thank you, Karen, for doing this, and thank you, Patty, for recommending it.
Welcome. We have a couple of minutes yet.
Well, we got real silent.
Yes, it is. That's waiting for Father Greg.
He's quite a busy guy with the 2 churches that he covers, and was it 3 services a Sunday? Yeah. How long were you there, Patty?
I was there for over 20 years.
Really?
We went through a huge change. Our church was right outside the gates of Naval Base. And so the congregation was, mostly people affiliated with the Navy. And they started shifting. I was there through a lot of changes. And then the Diocese of Washington decided that we needed to combine the churches with one pastor because of the amount of people in the came down. So, and one's a historic church, and the other one is in the center of where the main poverty is in that county. So, like, we need to keep that doors open for mission-based stuff. So, he's been able to keep both of them open, and it's pretty awesome to watch. But he's had his hands filled for a long time.
How large is the congregation?
I don't know what it is now because I've been gone for 5 years. When I left, it was about 300.
Wow.
Yeah, between the 2 churches.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a similar size to ours, right?
Yeah.
What is our membership now?
Father, you can answer that? Our membership?
We have about 325.
What was that, 225?
3.
325.
We're at 325?
Hi, Polly.
Hi,
Hi, Polly.
I was gonna say good morning, but I should say good evening. I've had a lot going this afternoon. Oh, okay.
Hi, Bob.
Hello. Okay, I'll put myself on video here. There we go.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
And don't we all look pretty with every crease and crevice showing?
Sit back further, Polly.
Good one, Joe.
Are we on yet?
Go ahead, Bob.
Are we on yet?
We're alive with each other. We're waiting for Father Greg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I hit gallery view and nothing happened. There you are. Now it's a gallery view.
We'll wait a few minutes as people are straggling in.
Well, I got dinner cooking. I
So if
hear
we
it.
see smoke behind you, we should say something.
Could be.
Or if the fire alarm goes off.
It would be nothing new. I've had the fire department twice.
Oh, jeez.
Get so messed up. That's the
Usually
city park
use microwave.
texts that are made in both of them.
Mary, how's your back?
Well, I went and got my MRI today, so blessings, because I was supposed to have to wait till Thursday, but they called and said they had an opening today, and I said, I'll take it wherever it is. So I drove all the way to Palm Harbor. And then they called and said, the doctor can see you Thursday instead of next week. And I said, thank you very much. So I'm happy about that. They gave me some of those lovely, CPAP steroids pills. And so I'm going to start taking those tonight. And hopefully that'll help. I've been living on Motrin. And so it's there. It's pretty daunting, but I'm okay.
Patty, did you want to send Father Greg a quick text just in case he's had trouble getting on?
Is having trouble getting out.
I'm on it.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. I already did it.
I knew that. You're amazing. Thank you. So while we're waiting for Father Greg, we'll go ahead and, oh, there he is. Oh, there he is. Welcome, Father.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello.
Okay, we're
Good,
going to
good.
go ahead and get started. Very glad to have all of you with us tonight. And our deepest gratitude to Father Greg for, now I can't read this without light, sorry, for a little bit, for sharing his time, experience, and wisdom with us as we go through this very important endeavor for Calvary. Just a few housekeeping items. Please silence your cell phones. Q&A will start at 6:30. The conference will conclude at 7 p.m. The session is being recorded for those fellow parishioners that were unable to attend today or had trouble logging in. And Father John, would you please start us off with a prayer?
Thank you, Sharon. And welcome, Father Greg. What a wonderful pleasure it is to have you with us with our flock tonight. And I'll ask for God's blessing to be upon you as you present your experiences with Sabbatical. And let's begin with the opening. The Lord be with you.
Also with you.
Dear Jesus, we invite you in tonight to this resourceful new digital age of ours, where we ask that you will be part of this presentation tonight. I pray that you'll give Father Greg just a great sense of peace as he presents something that he has experienced most recently with his own sabbatical. I pray, dear God, that you will guide and direct, and so, dear Father, help us in our minds and our hearts come to understand the importance of making and taking sabbatical, what it all means. This is new to our church. We are coming into a place where there are many questions and thoughts about how we as a church can renew ourselves so that we can be prepared for what's ahead. And we know that you know the road ahead of us. So I pray to God that this will be a meaningful time of discussion and a wonderful presentation. Obviously, your Father is coming our way. We just know it. And we thank you, dear God, for leading Father Greg to this assembly tonight. Continue to look after us this evening and guide us and direct. In Jesus' name we do pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Patty, would you do the honors of introducing Father Greg for us, please?
Let's go.
I like everybody to meet Father Greg. I've known Father Greg for 16 years. Worked with Greg at our parish back in Maryland, Southern Maryland, which was in the heart of the poverty and problem area of our county. And we dealt with a lot and tried to change a lot of hearts and minds and bring people to God. And Greg has had a lot of challenges or opportunities since I've known him, with the Diocese of Washington making some changes and us combining two churches together. And he has been also involved with the changing, like a transformation within the church itself there in Southern Maryland. So I think he's the reason I suggested he talk to you guys. I think he's been through a lot of this and can share some of his experiences and why the sabbatical was so important to not only to him and his faith, but also for the congregation back in Southern Maryland. And he has a new baby boy.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay, Father Greg, it's all yours.
All right. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, good. Sorry, it was later than I wanted to be. I was trying to get on shortly, but my computer wasn't working. So the cell phone is my backup. So it's work out fine. So I'm glad to be together. Thank you, Patty. Good to see you again. And the only downside, of course, of being on my phone is that I can't see all of your faces. I can swipe and then set up that screen. But so just I look forward to the Q&A and the discussion a little bit. And I had a great conversation with Father John. And so thanks for that time together. I think that was last month or so as we were heading to Christmas. But it's just really nice to spend time together in prayer and mutual discernment. And I know that you're all on a really exciting path, and you have been on a really exciting path. And God has clearly blessed Calvary with so many gifts. And one of the gifts here is the gift of thinking about and talking about and planning for a sabbatical experience. So I can say this about sabbaticals. It was in my experience a very profound experience. It definitely brought me closer to the heartbeat of Christian ministry. It brought me a lot closer to God in Christ. I had on my side of our sabbatical, it was a 4-month period, and it was truly fruitful in the conversations I had. It just felt like an open line of communication with God and Jesus. And parish ministry is supposed to bring us all, lay leaders and clergy leaders. Parish ministry is supposed to bring us all closer to the heart of ministry, which is celebrating the life that God has revealed to us in Jesus. But parish ministry also is work, and sometimes it can have the opposite effect. Sabbatical, truly, the gift of Sabbath rest, done intentionally and done well, may not have to be every 7 years, although it's a nice biblical goal to shoot for. I'm in my 17th year of ordained life, and I've served as rector here for 15 years, where I got to meet Patty. Even though we were in 2 different parishes at the time, and as Patty mentioned, we did the work to combine our 2 parishes and merge our 2 parishes into 1 parish with 2 buildings and 2 places, Ascension in Lexington Park, where Patty called home, and St. George's in Valley Lee, where I started 15 years ago. Sabbatical is really, in many ways, it's important. It was important for me and for us and our sabbatical team to think about this as a shared experience. And so to the degree that we were successful, we also began to talk about it as our sabbatical. So I and my family took on things on kind of my side of our sabbatical. And so what was I responsible for on my side of our sabbatical? And then what was the congregation responsible for, just in terms of claiming opportunities and even confronting challenges on their side of the sabbatical? I was blessed with a really great sabbatical committee. They helped me think and reflect prayerfully on what this journey was going to be about, and we learned all kinds of things. Like I said, I mean, I learned profound things on my side of our sabbatical, and they learned very profound things on their side of the sabbatical. And so part of it was structuring the process in such a way, and it seems like you're doing this at Calvary, and so you are to be commended for it, structuring the process in such a way that it sets everybody up for the greatest degree of success possible, so that we all can claim this experience as a sabbatical journey. The most important thing that we received was some wisdom shared with us as we started to journey closer to it about this from our bishop, who said that sabbatical really is an investment in shared ministry. And I like that as a concept. When she said it, I immediately remembered it. I treasured those words in my heart like Mary did. But I can say now on the side of our sabbatical experience that it really is an investment. It's an investment in our shared ministry. That's what it is. It's not, you can go through the list of things it's not, but just to be really clear about what it is, investment in all of our shared. Another thing that was helpful as we journeyed into it was to recognize that there were really at least 3 significant sections which surround the sabbatical period itself. There's the pre-sabbatical. The second is the experience of the shared sabbatical itself, in which we are apart from one another. And the third, and equally as important to the others, is the post-sabbatical reintegration process. It made sense to me, and it looked like it going into the year. In fact, I was on my side of our sabbatical. I left as Easter Day, celebrated worship on Easter Day, and so on April 18th, I kicked off my side of our sabbatical and returned to the parish on August 14th. So my side was really 4 months. And so we really treated the first 4 months of the year, January through April, as an intentional pre-sabbatical. We had been, of course, talking about it like you've been talking about it, socializing it and making plans. But January through April, what that pre-sabbatical period was an opportunity for us to do a number of things. Number one, to really strengthen the work of the sabbatical committee or the sabbatical team, and to help them, to the degree that I could help them, to help them achieve clarity of purpose and an approach that they felt they could live most fully into. One of the aspects was that we, in that pre-sabbatical period, discerned and led to the call of a sabbatical pastor. In fact, a sabbatical pastor couple who shared the oversight and the pastoral and liturgical oversight. The other thing was just recognizing about all the canonical responsibilities. The senior warden becomes the kind of ecclesiastical authority for the time The vestry continued their work. How will the committees and the staff understand their work? And then what in particular will the sabbatical committee do to continue to lead up to the actual sabbatical, but to create forums such as this that you're having tonight, but also to create forums for people to have some buy-in and some sense of feedback in the process, as well as a leave-taking event. And so we had a leave-taking liturgy. We also had a leave-taking dinner one evening a few weeks before Easter. Even though I wasn't going to be gone for a few weeks, we didn't want to cloud Palm Sunday and Holy Week and Easter with one more thing. And so we had our leave-taking dinner and celebration, and the sabbatical committee really claimed that. And then we were apart for 4 months on our respective sides of the sabbatical. And it's very clear, and I shared some of the names of members of our sabbatical committee, and because they have a unique story that they could tell you about what it was like for them. It was, in many ways, they told me, like, being pushed into the deep end, and yet they had a sense of plan, and they worked their plan, and they were also flexible as to what their plan involved. On my side, I did some serious, intensive spiritual work and some travel and some great mentoring and an opportunity to see what's happening in the Episcopal Church and in the broader Christian Church and in the broader Anglican tradition. And so it was a really fruitful time, not only just to open a conversation with God and the Holy Spirit, but also then to just spend that uninhibited time with my family and friends and travel, even when we were back here in the States. And when I was back here in the States, to travel and to be with family and friends. On August 14th, I was back. They had a reintegration liturgy, which I thought was really beautiful as part of that first Sunday back in both of our churches. It was kind of the bookmark to the leave-taking liturgy, which we did at the end of our Easter services. In fact, it was a really lovely thing. They asked me at the end of the Easter services to remove my stole, and I left my stole on the altar. The altars at both churches, and there the stole remained throughout sabbatical as a visible reminder of the relationships we share and of the gift I have in getting to pastor these congregations. And also then when I came back on August 14th, they created another kind of liturgical series of prayers, and the sabbatical committee and I gathered as we began worship on that Sunday, and they gave me back the stole and I put it back on, and we continued worship. A few weeks later, in early September, we had another kind of back to church post sabbatical gathering. We had one combined service with a fellowship picnic afterwards, and an opportunity to talk about in small groups what they learned and what others learned during sabbatical and what I learned and experienced during sabbatical. It's very clear to me, having gone through it now, that the pre-sabbatical and the post-sabbatical periods, it's very clear to me that they take as long as I was gone, as we were apart. So a sabbatical of 4 months really did mean that 4 months before April last year, people who knew conceptually that this was going to be happening suddenly started talking very seriously about it happening. And sometimes it was joyful, and sometimes it was about opportunities, and sometimes the low-lying anxiety suddenly turned up a notch. It was like somebody turned the dial up on the burner on the stove, and the low boil started to become a high boil for some. And it's very clear to me that the post-sabbatical period also took as long as the pre-sabbatical period, which took as long as the time in which we were apart from one another. And so really from September through December, our work was reintegrating, me learning again their story, me sharing what God laid on my heart in that process, and them having the opportunity, the vestry and the sabbatical committee especially, having the opportunity to share some learnings, and they learned a lot. And then they were in a position of teaching me things, and I was in a position of learning from them. It's also clear to me that there's a fourth part of the sabbatical, which is this, where I kind of find myself now. I find myself now, it does feel like the post-sabbatical period, the immediate post-sabbatical period is over. Now it does really feel like that fresh new season of ministry that we were investing in. And I really do believe that I will not fully learn, and we will not fully experience the gifts of the fruit that the Spirit has laid in our lives for this sabbatical experience. I believe that this is going to take at least another year. That is to say, the new season that we invested in, because we invested in a sabbatical, this new season is going to take as long as the pre-sabbatical, the sabbatical, and the post-sabbatical took, which is to say, one more year as we all together now move in this new direction into whatever this new season of our life and ministry is. There were challenges along the way, but frankly, some of the challenges, and if you have the opportunity to talk with the lay leaders of our sabbatical committee, they would probably say that some of the challenges that happened, they didn't even see coming. And some of the opportunities that happened, they didn't even see coming either. And so I have to say, the period leading up to sabbatical was filled with a lot of anxiety and questions, and frankly, questions I couldn't help them with because I didn't know the answer myself. And so it really put us all on a level playing field of no one really knew where this was going to go, but we were all mutually committed to some heightened expectancy that God, the Holy Spirit, will be faithful to us as he has been faithful to his church, and will show up in the times we need him most. And I have to say, that has been true. God's faithfulness has always been true, but it has been felt and experienced as a deep, profound truth by me and by members of the leadership, at least of the congregation, if not the whole congregation. So I look forward to just having some conversation tonight. That's about all I had to present. And if there are any specific questions or comments or even just conversations among your group, I'm glad to be here.
Okay, I have one. You said it presented challenges and opportunities. So would you elaborate the challenges they saw and the opportunities that happened?
Yeah, the challenges, to begin with that, the challenges were in many ways that they had to step into leadership in a profound way. And they had to be aware of things that maybe I had begun and didn't fully flesh out with them, or things that were underway. I'm really impressed by the way in which they handled so much of it, because the tendency to say, they tried to kind of put a pause button on a lot of things that they could put a pause button on, but there's so much in life that you just cannot put a pause button on because it just is happening. And yet the sabbatical committee and the vestry and the parish leadership as a whole learned a lot. They learned a lot about the management and oversight of the church. I believe that we as the Episcopal Church have a robust understanding of lay people and clergy working together. But let's be honest, we're also talking about, non-profit faith-based organizations that do require a rector and a staff to carry out some things. And when the rector's not away, suddenly the people say, oh my gosh, there's a lot that was going on there. The opportunities were really manifold. I think they walked into this with a hope of having some kind of, at some point they were talking about a book study or some prayer groups or really deepening this ministry or that ministry. But the opportunities really were deepened fellowship and a deepened reality that they, as the church, can do this. That having a rector and a priest and pastor is value added, but they, as the church, could pull this off. They did a few funerals in my absence, and our deacons and our sabbatical pastors and our lay leaders, and funerals are those moments in church life, for instance, where no one can prepare for it. And when it has to happen, it simply has to happen. And so you need to be present. And I think it's really impressive that they were able to pull off, I think they did 3 funerals over that time. And the first one was hard. And I think they said they were tempted to call me, but then they didn't. And but they learned a lot. They also really deepened the fellowship among the body in the congregations, which was remarkable, especially important coming out of COVID or wherever we are in COVID. It's long been a need, but until the people of the body of Christ realize that it's not only a need, but an opportunity to deepen fellowship, keep connected with one another, it's not going to happen. And so it was really neat to see and to hear stories about ways in which they started things like combined services and ice cream socials and gatherings. And particular to our story, and I'm sure there's a long running story in Calvary. There's always that kind of long running story in any church, but our story was a story of 2 congregations, 2 parishes, which merged to become 1 parish, but we've kept 2 churches. And so essentially 2 congregations. Coming back from sabbatical, they actually moved a lot faster in terms of thinking of themselves as 1 church in 2 locations than I ever thought we would. And I was committed to taking it very slowly and letting the Spirit speak into our life, what the Spirit will speak. And now they're kind of like, hey, we're 1 church in 2 locations. So let's think of ourselves and let's act more like 1 church in 2 locations. So having more combined worship services at 1 campus or the other, having more combined leadership engagement, having more combined this, thinking of themselves as Resurrection Parish, more so than Ascension or St. George's. That was an opportunity, that is an opportunity that I was hoping would happen in the next, 10 years. And Sabbatical really fast forwarded that to a gift and a reality that they are claiming, and they are teaching me now that they want to be farther along than we were otherwise going to be. So it's really neat stuff that I learned from them.
So you're saying, Father Greg, that the strength of your fellowship programs is very key during a sabbatical period for us to maintain our semblance with ourselves, our Christianity, our belief in God, and that needs to keep going forward in some type of social environment, and maybe perhaps on a more frequent basis than we normally do. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, that was certainly true in our experience. We were the one thing we did have as a nominal plan going in. They really lived into it and realized the strength of that. The leave taking dinner and the regathering picnic were the 2 bookmarks. And then over the course of those 4 months, they planned 3 intentional fellowship opportunities. And those were great. Those were really, and the sabbatical committee and the vestry and the parish leadership really owned those in a powerful and profound way. I'm really proud of them. And because what they realize is that fellowship is the glue that keeps us connected. And they were very intentional about doing that.
Yeah, Father Said, my name is Bob Lima. I'm one of the members of Calvary, and it's a pleasure to listen to you, and we appreciate your time. The question I have is kind of on your perspective. Were you, while in sabbatical, do you often wonder, am I going to have a congregation when I get back? And I wonder if your congregation is going to say, well, maybe he's going to find out that he needs to be someplace else. And I guess that would be kind of the pessimistic view of it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Father. Let me just quickly interrupt. I was asked earlier if I could start practicing departure. So for this presentation, first of all, I had a great time talking with you before this, and I felt like you and I have a kindred connection, and we will continue on this journey together. But I did vow, I made a vow to Karen and to Patty that I would allow for there to be an enriched conversation in my absence if we're truly going to practice what we preach here. So I'm going to depart, but I'm leaving you in great hands, and we will continue down this road together. And God bless you. And you gave us some great insight, and you'll provide more, I'm sure, as the questions continue. So I love you dearly. Thank you all. And with everyone's permission, I'm going to tune out at this time.
Good night, Father. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Night. Bob, your question is a good one, and yeah, I heard from some colleagues. We hear all these stories, and a colleague of mine said, "Oh, sabbatical was so hard because I came back and everyone just took over everything, and it was hard for me to reintegrate." Well, hey, I think role clarity is a great gift, and I know that I over functioning as a rector, and COVID helped people who tend to over function like myself. It gave me an excuse to double over function. And so the congregation has been clear. They did take on things that they really want to own, and things that I didn't think I should have in my oversight anyway. And so that's been a real gift. I attend far fewer finance committee meetings than I did. We've always had a strong finance committee, but that's just one. Our prayer team really was nascent at best, and they really connected deeply around sabbatical, and now they are leading, and it's just an amazing miracle and witness to the Spirit to see. But yeah, and then there's always the story where the guy comes back from sabbatical and then announces he's being called to this other church, and those are unfortunate. Our bishop is clear, has been clear with clergy in this diocese that sabbatical is not an opportunity for you to go looking elsewhere, and I was not inclined to do that anyway, but unfortunately that does happen too often. And she did also say that our bishop said that to our sabbatical committee and to our vestry when we started talking about it, that I have been clear with Greg and the other clergy that sabbatical is not an opportunity. That in fact her expectation is that you and she said this to me and to the other clergy. She also said this to the vestry and the sabbatical committee of my congregation, that the rector will remain in the call until at least one full year after the sabbatical. And I didn't know if that meant like Easter or, but now I'm realizing, like, as I said to you, I'm still figuring this out too. Having gone those 3 stages and now being in this 4th stage, the stage in which we really are moving into this next season of ministry to which we have all invested, I'm realizing that this next year is the year that I need to keep my feet planted and my eyes focused on serving this community. But yeah, unfortunately, those stories do happen. And it saddens me because it makes sabbatical a fearful experience for the rest of us. And it cheapens the experience for the rest of us who really do want to take this on as a spiritual discipline.
Now, Father Greg, we applied for the Lilly Foundation grant and unfortunately was not given an award. Did you apply for the Lilly Foundation grant for your sabbatical, and then were you luckier than we were?
Yeah, we did apply, and no, we weren't lucky. In fact, I spoke with Father John about it, and in part, I think Lilly wasn't even able to give me any feedback on my application because they said they've gotten so many sabbatical grant applications, which makes sense given where we've been with COVID. But it was, I don't think it wasn't a bad thing. I have to say, number one, because it helped form our committee and our plan and our sense of commitment to this as a spiritual experience and sabbatical. And so that grant application we really carried through. Number two, we didn't have to do the paperwork for Lilly. We just had to be accountable to ourselves. And so that was a nice gift unto itself. But of course, the funding opportunity, we didn't have Lilly's pharmaceutical money, so we had to identify the funding among ourselves.
I have a question, and I don't know if I know how to say it appropriately. Is what when you left, you have to have people in charge to run things. So was it just the senior warden and a deacon, or did you have other people kind of in charge?
Yeah. What did we have? The senior and junior wardens. Well, actually, just in our case, we have two wardens because we have two churches. So the two wardens were kind of auxiliary members of the sabbatical committee. And then they pretty much just became full members of the sabbatical committee in the process of leading up to the sabbatical and during it. And so we were clear, kind of like the wardens and the vestry and the parish administrator would handle all of the canonical responsibilities and oversight responsibilities of running the parish. And the sabbatical committee, and they had their own chair and their own membership. And it was a small committee. It was only 5 people on the sabbatical committee. And then they added the 2 wardens. And so it became a committee of 7. And then we have 2 deacons. And so they integrated the 2 deacons. And so it became kind of a team of 9. But the 5 lay members of the sabbatical committee really took it upon themselves to kind of see to the fellowship and the spiritual connections and work with the sabbatical pastors to integrate them into the liturgical pastoral oversight. So we kind of divided it, the financial administrative piece and the liturgical spiritual pastoral fellowship piece.
Hey, I have another question. The administrative assistant, are they going to become overburdened? I'm speaking for Leah.
That was a concern. That was a big concern. And yes, it was a concern. And I worked very closely with our administrator to set in place some processes but it was hard. It was really hard on her. Thanks for bringing that up, because that's something, she got a lot. Our administrator's name is Kimberly. And so Kimberly got, she was in the deep end. But it was really kind of neat because the deacons and the sabbatical committee really rallied to her support, and even, came in and took on volunteer responsibilities in the office, helped generate funeral bulletins, and took on additional meetings with community partners when our administrator was, trying to figure out who are the partners and what am I supposed to do with them. And luckily, nobody wanted to say like, well, we're done with this, because I don't know what Greg was thinking. They all kind of dealt with it, but they really did pull together as a team. And I think they pulled together as a team because we spent a lot of time building that team: sabbatical committee, warden, and administrator.
Never mind.
Father Greg, thank you very much. But I have a question about you mentioned about finances, and at that point I was on mute and I couldn't figure out how to get it off. But how did you, like, when you were planning for this, did you plan a few years ahead as far as the finances go, or did you kind of have to deal with what you had at that particular time, knowing that you weren't getting the Lilly grant? And because your congregation was probably in a similar situation to our congregation at this point, you're coming out of COVID and we're coming out of a semi-recession. So
Yeah. The finances were a challenge. We were working on it for a while. Plan A was Lilly, and that plan fell through. Plan B was make a transfer, because we were thinking about Lilly. You can apply for up to 50,000, right? And then you can dedicate 15 of that 50 for the sabbatical pastor, and so then 35 would help fund the sabbatical experience. And so we were just kind of thinking, like, how could we raise and identify 50,000? Plan B was each church withdrawal from its endowment of 20 and put it into a fund for the sabbatical. And we didn't need to do Plan B because along the way in late 2021, the churches were given a significant bequest, an unrestricted bequest from somebody. And the vestry said, well, hey, let's put this in a restricted fund. And if we get the Lilly grant, then we'll give that money back to ourselves. But if we don't get the Lilly grant, we'll just use this. So they took 50 of that bequest and they just put it in a restricted fund.
Karen, are we looking at a $50,000 figure?
No, we're looking at 35.
All right. And I have a question for Father Greg. It's about the sabbatical priest. He has not been, or she has not been discussed yet. How much of a role did the priest play in that as representing the priesthood, worship and liturgical?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me try to remember. We were all over the map on that because we were trying to find somebody. We're in a part of our diocesan region where we're kind of at the end of the road. And so we don't have a lot of clergy down here and a lot of retired clergy or people just willing to take on 16 weeks. And in fact, the first that we were finding just weren't going to materialize. And then we actually worked, our sabbatical pastors, it's a married couple, and they together split one full-time job as the pastors of our local ELCA Lutheran church. And so when one, and they alternate Sundays anyway, so one is leading and the other is in the pews with their family. And so for those weeks, they just alternated so that the one who would be in the pew with the family was with Resurrection Parish, and the one who was leading, and vice versa. But we didn't ask them to plan worship. The sabbatical committee and I had already kind of planned the worship. The musicians and the music directors for both churches planned the music. They did preach. The sabbatical pastors were preaching most, but they also were a part of a clergy team with the deacons. And so we asked that the deacons, we have two deacons, but one of them has been with us for a little bit longer than the other. So the one deacon was kind of the primary point person for anything pastoral or liturgical. And then that, because the congregations know our deacons more so than they knew at the time our sabbatical pastors. And so anything pastoral or liturgical went to the deacon first, and then the deacon shared it with the pastor team. And that, just amazing things happened. Like just we're actually really blessed. In fact, the Lutheran Church is immediately halfway between George's and Ascension, our two campuses. And so we now share so much more with Good Samaritan Lutheran Church than we ever did. And the pastors, the Sabbatical pastors really kind of took on. It was really nice because we just said, will you please be here on Sundays and just kind of be in our fellowship and be aware and answer, your phone when we call. And it was really neat because by about May into June, the deacons and the pastors and the sabbatical committee and the sabbatical pastors really had this natural born affinity for each other. And so they started to share a lot more. And so, hey, I know you have this thing coming up. Can I help you with that? Or, hey, Good Samaritan is doing this. Can Ascension help with that? And that's continued in a beautiful way. So we didn't really go into it with a plan. That is to say, we didn't go into it with high expectations for the sabbatical pastors. We actually had higher expectations for our deacons and our sabbatical committee. And then the pastors kind of grew into the fellowship of the church and then grew into more responsibility and more oversight over the period.
Karen, in regards to your question, I do have a little input that maybe help us out. And, Father John is going to be with us, the schedule I have, correct me, Karen, if I'm wrong, but he'll be with us until June, through June, to the end of June.
Correct.
And then July, we don't have, at this point, someone to be to be announced. But I can tell you that it's encouraging because my part of the committee is the spiritual part. And I'm looking at August and September, and we're going to be blessed to have the commitment from Father Hires to come in for the month of August and September.
Yes.
And Father Hire, he's been filling in for the past. And then after that, Father John will be returning in the middle of October. And as I look at this, I'm taking that responsibility on, and I was wondering, well, how do I, as an individual, as a member of the congregation, can I lead in any form like that? I'm not formally trained by any means. My experience has been sitting on the pew, sitting at the altar, reading, ushering, all this stuff. And I said, now all of a sudden we're going to bring the spiritual part into our congregation. Well, God calls us to be leaders. They don't call us, he doesn't call us just to sit there in the pew. He calls us to be leaders and come out, and when the time calls that he calls you, that you step forward. So I'm looking forward to our congregation to grow spiritually. Each one of us, every member of the church, and I know God will provide all those finances. He always has, and he's never let us down. No. So I know that I imagine Father Greg's congregation grew. I hope they did, spiritually, and in the area of God is calling us to be leaders. We can't sit in the background anymore. We need to step up because we don't know what we're going to have another COVID. We're not going to have with some other challenges. Some of the other churches are having big challenges going through, as we know. So I want this experience. I think it's because God wants us to step up, to come forward. What He has brought us, what He's told us in the gospel. We can only grow if we reach out to the source, and the source is His. He is the source that leads us. And I tell you, we have a great bishop that we just seated, and I'm sure that whatever help we need, Bishop Sharp will be there for us. That I say that from a personal experience. So I know God will bless us, and I just have to let you know that we're not going to be alone. We got some great horses coming up.
Thank you, Bob.
Bob, I don't think you could have said that any better than you did, and you have always been more than just sitting in a pew to us, so, which is why you're our spiritual coordinator. So thank you, Bob. That was very important and very touching. Appreciate it.
Reverend Greg, just a couple other questions. What is the strength of your congregation as far as numbers go? And if you were to look back and say that was an oversight in our either the pre-stage, the actual stage, or the post-stage, what would you identify?
Yeah, numerically, pre-COVID, the two churches combined were about 125 on average attendance. I don't even want to think about what the COVID numbers were. And we're starting to come back. St. George's is coming back stronger than Ascension, just kind of numerically. And membership is always that hard one to figure out anyway, so I just go with average Sunday attendance. And it's reasonable to expect, I think, in this next year that we'll get back to those pre-COVID levels. I can already feel it happening at St. George's, and there's movement underway at Ascension. Oversights, that one thing. I'll say, just maybe because it's freshest in my mind right now. Three things. Number one, I'll just speak to each phase as it kind of presented itself. The pre-sabbatical phase, which is really where you are now, the ramping up, the getting excited about it, but excitement manifests itself in different people in different ways. Some people get really excited, like Bob just spoke to, about the opportunity for all God's people to claim their ministry. Excitement in other people shows up like anxiety and fear and worry. And that was hard. And it was a very hard season. I'm glad that it was a terminal season, which meant that it ended when I left. I know it didn't end for the congregation necessarily, but just, that calling on all of our skills to be a non-anxious presence. I just had to be especially non-anxious in the pre-sabbatical period. During sabbatical, when we were on our respective sides of our sabbatical, but apart from each other, the point that you just made, Bob, about your new bishop is a good one, and being able to call on the resources of the diocese. I wish that our diocese had been more responsive and engaging, not just even responsive. I'm not even sure that our leadership reached out or even raised a flag that the diocese could pay attention to. But I wish that our diocese would have been more forthrightly engaged to the leadership of Resurrection Parish when I was away. And they just didn't. And so if you have any connections in your diocese and in a way to really let someone know, and just even a simple email or a note from a member of the bishop's staff to say, hey, we're praying for you. Just the knowledge that somebody on your diocesan staff is praying for you, is aware of where you are when Father John is away. That's a gift that would have gone a long way, because even though our sabbatical pastors and our sabbatical committee and our deacons and our parish administrator did amazing things, they still hit some real roadblocks. And so it's nice. It would have been nicer if they could have had some just prayer support. Not that the bishop or the bishop's staff needed to do anything, but to hold them in prayer. And then thirdly, the coming back from sabbatical was actually really hard. And if I could do it all over again, I would have probably changed some things about the post-sabbatical experience. Our sabbatical pastors did a really good job in getting the sabbatical committee to write a report. Now, they didn't all do that. And then our sabbatical pastor really kind of combined those reports. And so it's really neat. Like, I had a meeting with them within my first week back. And it was really, we carved out like a whole afternoon so we could just spend time together in prayer. And the sabbatical pastor was the facilitator of that meeting. And I'm glad it was like a 4-hour conversation, and they had submitted their reports, and the sabbatical pastor had collated those reports and put them together in kind of one report. But they, the same level of anxiety that was before the sabbatical showed up after the sabbatical. And it was very apparent to me that whereas on my side of our sabbatical, I had a profound spiritual reawakening and renewal. On their side of the sabbatical, they had a deep dive into managing the institutional church. And it was really hard for me to try to speak to where I sense God calling me, and I hope God calling us, to a committee that was really, I have to say, really in many ways overwhelmed by the experience of managing an institutional church and trying to keep all the pieces together and not blow anything up. And that was hard. It was just really hard. And which is maybe, and so I for the last 4 months, having come back, I was deeply committed to just walking with them and learning from them. And because people under stress and anxiety can't hear about new directions and opportunities. And so it makes sense to me why it took 4 full months to be there, and why only now are we able to think about this next new season of our life together. But yeah, and I don't know what we could have done, to your question. I don't know what we could have done to change those things. But maybe there were things we could have done.
Well, I think it gives us a realistic expectation that even though the sabbatical may be over in September, that it actually is going to take a while for everybody to adjust. And I think that's reassuring. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I have a question. We spoke to the fact that possibly they brought up a priest deciding afterward, they're going to move on somewhere. Has there been much of an incidence of the parish kind of melting away while the priest is largely the glue to the keeping things together. And so I wondered if things kind of ever fell away when they were gone.
Yeah, I think that's important fear, real fear, and it's an important thing to worry about, but worry about in a healthy way. I mean, just to be mindful of. I haven't heard that experience, although I have heard, I think I have heard of congregations kind of taking things on during sabbatical, and then the clergy person comes back, and then there's kind of a power struggle in some ways. I think the one thing that I have learned about during the sabbatical experience is that how important it is to hold things really lightly. I'm sure there are things that Father John does just because of, who he is and what he does as rector, that he just simply can't let everybody know every decision, and not even decision, every conversation he has. And it's that, it was that way with me. And I'm just really grateful that the sabbatical committee and our leadership in my absence didn't and they were confronted with, I had a number of conversations in the congregation where Patty was a member, where we are really turning our assets, which is our building and our mission presence in a really underserved neighborhood, and we're creating a real sense of community ownership of that building. Whereas, yes, it's the Episcopal Church's building, but a number of other organizations also claim ownership. We're getting away from renter and landlord model to a shared community partnership. So I had started these conversations, and sure enough, it's still pretty chaotic, because it's just easier to say, well, we're the Episcopal Church, we own the place, and you can be here or you can't be here. And so I'm just grateful that when the Sabbatical Committee and leadership and wardens and vestry were presented with, well, who's this group? That they didn't say, we don't want you here. They said, yeah, well, hey, look, we're on sabbatical, we're going to hold this lightly. Let's not make any new plans right now for the next 4 months until Greg comes back. But let's kick you out, and say, what?
Julie, I think to your point, I think a very important key to that is communication. And I think the more the Sabbatical Committee and the vestry can communicate with the congregation of what the status of projects are, or issues, or lists of things to do, the better off we will be, because we'll be able to support what needs to get done. So I think communication, we started off in a good way, and I think we need to do more communication, and we are committed to do that. And I think that will help us not feel like we're falling away from the church and our congregation.
What was some of his concerns while he was away from his church, if any? And I'm just concerned at how he felt when he was away from his church. Did he worry about them? I don't know.
Yeah, me?
Mm-hmm. What were your concerns while you were away from your church?
I say, while I was away, I didn't have any concerns. I really didn't. I brought with me the directory, and it was one of my disciplines to spend time praying for each member of the church. I really wasn't concerned, and in fact, if they have called me, I would have become concerned. But so that I was grateful they didn't call me.
Well, we're just about at the end. Does anybody else have a quick question for Father Greg? I know his time is valuable and he has a lot of responsibilities on his plate too. So does anybody else have something they'd like to say?
I'd just like to say, Karen, that I think your point's well taken with communication, because each of us is going to feel a little bit rudderless with our pastor gone. And even though we have a very solid pastor and pastors to help us through this, and the more we know, the more we can get involved, and the more we can feel more comfortable with this.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, again, our deepest gratitude, Father Greg. You gave us a lot to think about, gave us some comfort that the planning we've started already, we're on a good path, which is, you always tend to second guess yourselves. Is this the right thing to do? It's the first time our parish in a long time has been on this important mission. So we thank you, and I thank everybody for participating, and everybody have a great rest of your week. Okay. Thanks, Patty, for arranging this. Greatly appreciate it. It was a great venture.
God bless each one of you.
Everybody.
Thank you. Good night.